Hi, I'm Rick at Rick Turns, and today's video is... Hi, I'm Rick Morris. This is the Rick Turns channel, and for today's project, no actual wood turning. I'm going to make another little tool. I'm going to make this very large faceplate that... I hate making a mistake like that. This very large faceplate. And I use this on the lathe, of course, with a finished bowl put right here, tailstock brought up so I can finish the bottom of the bowl. And then I'll end up with a little nub right in the center that I'll chisel off and then sand down. After I published my other video about my faceplate, making my faceplate, I realized I forgot to include any video of how it's used. And of course it's not complicated, I'm sure everyone can figure it out, but I have had a few requests for, what does it look like? So I am updating my original video with this clip and one other clip, and I'm going to delete the original video. So if you tried to get to the original one and it wasn't there, my apologies. Alright, so these are the two really big faceplates that I've made. This is my biggest one. It's a little over 19 inches. The swing on my lathe is 20 inches, so had to be smaller than that. And this is the one I'm going to make in this video, and it's about 14 inches. Both of them work really well. I just made the 14-inch one because it's not as heavy. Now, both of these have a faceplate on the back. The small one there actually has a face ring that my chuck goes into. This one's got a 6-inch faceplate. And as you would expect, it screws right onto the lathe. Headstock spindle. Now, all by itself, it's not going to do you any good at all because there's nothing to hold the bowl against it. So I use the tailstock. Put that on here. Now, this particular blank is kind of warped after it dried, so it's not the greatest thing in the world to show, but you notice I left a little dimple right in the center. That's so after I turn it, turn it, sand it, everything, I can get this back in the center. And that makes it a lot easier because then it's not, then you don't have to guess at it and move it back and forth until you get it about right. So, as you can see right there, you want to tighten it up to the extent that you can without breaking the bottom of the bowl. Depends on how much wood you left down there. And then you turn at slow speed, not real fast. I usually will turn this on this faceplate at maybe 600 maximum. It's not the most secure hold in the world. It's only intended for cleaning up the bottom. Does a good job on that. Now this is about 19 3/8 inches. I've got a 20-inch swing on my lathe. But I do want to make a slightly smaller faceplate because I don't always really need one this big, although it doesn't hurt. To make one of these, you're going to need 3 or 4 items. So first of all is a piece of plywood for the plate itself. Like this. Now, you don't want thin plywood, you don't want cheap plywood. Mainly because you want something that's going to be flat, not twisted or warped. If you look at the inexpensive construction plywood, siding plywood, and so forth at Home Depot and other stores like that, you see a lot of times they're kind of twisted, they're kind of warped. And it's really impossible to get that warp out other than nailing it up to studs. So what you want to get is 3/4 inch cabinet plywood, and that's what this is. Although this particular one is a piece of scrap from a dismantled piece of furniture that I had. But it's 3/4 inch cabinet plywood. It's dead flat. This one is about 14 inches across. Yep. And about 15 inches that away. I'm going to make about a 14-inch faceplate. And of course, I'll be cutting a circle out right here, 14 inches. Now, the other things you're going to need are, you're going to need a real faceplate. And what I'm going to use for my real faceplate, this is actually a faceplate ring that fits my chuck. This is a SC4 record chuck, and they distributed the little kit that you buy with, of course, the chuck, and this is the faceplate ring. So it's got 4 holes in it. This will work out fine. And of course, the faceplate, the chuck, you put right into this recess right here, expand the jaws into it, and now you've got a real tight hold right there. That's what you need. This is my second addition to the original video about building my faceplate. So with these 2 faceplates that I have, one of them's got a regular faceplate on it, and one of them has a faceplate ring on it that connects right into the jaws of the chuck, and you expand the chuck into it. That's great. Both of them cost money. If you have a Bill wood spindle tap like this one, you can make your own essentially chuck for this, because you really don't need a chuck. What you need is something with the threading on it and it attached solidly to the plywood. This is the Bill chuck right here. This one is a 1x8. They do have it in 1 1/4 by 8. I'll put a Amazon screenshot showing what it costs. It's around $30 or $35, I think. So you would take this, you would take a block of wood, tap it, glue the wood onto here, and then you've got a way to screw it onto your lathe without using up a faceplate or buying a new one. Let me see. There's one other thing you're going to need, and that is some type of cushioning material to put against the wood. Now, this isn't absolutely necessary. There is a chance of scratching the rim if you put your bow flat on the wood. So you can see, like this one right here, I've got this, I think this is some kind of drawer liner. It's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit less than that thick, and I just glued it on here. And so what I'm going to use for this one is this piece of cork. So, first step is just find the center of this piece right here. Now I need to draw the largest size circle I can fit in here. I'm going to put this on the bandsaw, cut out the circle, then I'll trim it up on the lathe to get it exact, although it doesn't really have to be exact. All right, now that's going to be about my maximum distance. This should end up giving me about a 14-inch diameter. Excellent. All right, I've got my circle cut. It's not precise, but hey, that's all right. Got my compass here set to the radius of my faceplate ring, just to make it easier to position it before I screw it in. Good enough. I can see it anyway. And I don't want to snug these screws down until I get them all in place. And now it's off to the lathe. Now, this is a record SC4 chuck with 50mm jaws on it. And that's what the faceplate ring requires, is the 50mm jaws. So I'm going to put that in there, on there. And this, of course, the faceplate ring with the recess for the chuck jaws goes right here. All right, that's about 1,000 RPM. And I'm just going to do a little bit of sanding to get some of that surface off there. I'm going to be gluing something to it. All right, that's good. This is going to be covered up with a piece of thin cork. So I'm just sanding it down to get it nice and smooth, ready to glue something onto it. And the last step here, this is my self-adhesive cork shelf liner paper, I guess you'd call it. And I don't know if it's going to show all that well right there, but that's about looks like about a 1/16 or so, but that's plenty. It's not going to have to do a whole lot of work. Now, the important thing about this is it's 18 inches wide. As you can see, it'll cover from here to here. If this were for my larger piece, my larger faceplate, which was 19 inches, this wouldn't go side to side, and I'd have to patch in another piece. So, if you're doing this at home, try and buy a piece that is as wide as the super big faceplate that you're working on. Now, let's see, I need to cut this off right about there. Okay. And I hope this stuff sticks well. And of course now, just a matter of trimming it all the way around. Excellent. Ah. And there we have it. 14-inch faceplate. Very easy, very cheap. Let me mention, if you don't have scrap materials on hand, and of course you probably don't have this, although you might have something similar to it. I got this cork shelf liner from Amazon for about $8.50 or so. For cabinet grade plywood, you don't need to buy a 4x8 sheet, which would be expensive. Home Depot and probably other places carry what they call project pieces, smaller cuts out of plywood. And they do indeed have a 2-foot by 2-foot piece of cabinet grade plywood. And I'll put the link right here on the video. It wasn't very expensive, $8, $10, something like that. And then, if you don't have a spare faceplate you can use, that's a little more expensive. You can pick one up as cheap as about $25 or so, but here's a couple on Amazon here to take a look at. They're probably the least expensive on Amazon I could find, and they're 1 1/4 inch. If your lathe doesn't need that large, you'll be okay. Right. That's all there is to it. See you next video.